Rob. Thank you guys for coming today. It's been an amazing season so far, great summer, and we look forward to the great week that we have ahead, and looking forward also to spending time with you.
Let's get started. I first want to ask, how would you kind of just evaluate what you guys were able to do during the secondary transfer window?
I think we did well considering that we responded to the needs we had from our coaching staff. Similar to last year, it just brought competition among our group. It raised the quality of our training sessions, and those guys are already contributing. So ultimately, we are happy with what we did in the summer transfer window, and we didn't sign players just for the sake of signing players, but just to improve our squad.
What was from the coaching staff? What were you getting from what they were looking for, what they needed during that window?
So as always, they're asking for specific profiles. So when you look at Duan and Andres, for example, as the wingbacks, they're different than what we used to have on our roster, and they just bring something different, and they allow our coaching staff to have some tactical flexibility. And same goes with Dylan and Aziel. And again, you look at this weekend, and whether they're coming off the bench or starting, those guys have been great contribution to our squad.
And Wolford made a comment a couple weeks ago that it's kind of like a dance, a back and forth of you guys when you're talking about bringing in players. Sometimes he doesn't want what you guys want, and it's just those comments. Nothing. It sounds a little cordial, but like, what are just those conversations like?
No, he calls it the bachata because he would come one day where he has an idea, and the next day it's different. But at the same token, we think the same way, so it's not a surprise. So it's not conflictual by any means. It's fun just because you expect him to change opinion, ourselves to change opinion, and we challenge each other, and that's how I think has brought success in our signings.
Issa, I'm curious, as you've probably now withstood the rush of assuming this new role, where do you find yourself spending most of your time as general manager?
It's hard to say, Chris. It's been a lot, but at the same time enjoyable. In the role itself, I don't want to say there's not been much change, but I was almost prepared for it, and I was assuming responsibilities that were already some of a GM. So in terms of the workload, it's just different in terms of now managing the entire club as opposed to just a department. But to be honest, the summer we've had on and off the pitch has been great. So so far I've enjoyed it. It is a lot. I'm not going to lie, and thankfully I have a supportive wife that helps me also off the field and outside the office. Sorry, and no, but it's been great. It's been awesome.
I asked Wilfried about this, and he said there hasn't been a whole lot of change. It's a natural part of the season, but the premise to the question was you already know you're going to be in Champions League next year.
Mm-hmm.
You know what a long season looks like, having experienced it a bit last year, but mostly this year.
Mm-hmm.
What are the conversations like behind closed doors as it relates to working on the roster for the January transfer window?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a great question, Chris, and it's something that not only our conversation are ongoing with Wilfried on a weekly basis, but also coming from ownership. And ownership has been great since I took over, and they've been very supportive, and they're also asking those questions on how our roster is going to evolve and for next year. You also have to look at this year. What the team has been doing is incredible. We've played something like 42 games, I think, if you include our friendly games in the summer. And comparing to other rosters in the league, we have one of the smaller roster. And it's done by design and on purpose, and it's been working. And kudos to our players, because they are pros and they take care of themselves, and knock on wood, they've avoided injuries, but also our staff has been doing an amazing job to keep them on the field. So going into next year, we are not looking to change a whole lot. Just relying on the group of guys that's here. Again, it's been an amazing 2023, 2024. It's something not to take for granted. I hope we all enjoy this moment because it's special, and I think it's a period of time that we will remember later. And hopefully we'll remember 2023, 4, 5, and 6, and 7. Yeah.
And speaking of that, big moments, Campeones Cup on Wednesday. Share with us internally what it's like for this club to be competing yet again for another trophy.
Yeah, and you just said yet again, which that's my point earlier, not to take it for granted because it doesn't happen that often. More so at home. So we're fortunate for that. And internally, we do realize it's a big deal. Again, Campeones seems fresh to this league. But for most of us in this room that follow world soccer, we know the Community Shield and in France they have they call it the Trophée des Champions, the Champions Trophy they call it, which is similar to what we have in Campeones Cup. And most of us that are here in this room were here in 2021, and we remember what it was, and it was a big deal, a big game, and at the end we ended up lifting a trophy on stage at home. The fact that we can do it again, it's a big deal for our club. So we look forward to this game on Wednesday against a fierce opponent in our region. And we hope that we'll play in front of a packed house and have supporters behind you like they always are.
Thank you. Issa, have you been informed of what the criteria is for entry into the 2025 FIFA Club World Cup apartment?
I have not been informed, no.
If you had to come up with a criteria, what kind of criteria would you come up with?
The Columbus Crew. No, I would take the Columbus Crew, obviously, because of what we've accomplished as of late. But then again, I was also on the other side working at the league and at FIFA, and I know it's not as straightforward as people want it to be. We shall see. We shall see what the league decides, and hopefully it's us.
I have predictions. How many phone calls do you get on Cucho?
I pause because I'm like, it's Kucho, but it's also other players.
Right.
And I'm not surprised. I do get phone calls, but it's not surprising. Why? Because we've been successful. Our club, our players have done great, and I'm not surprised receiving phone calls for Kucho and others. Now, if you want to know from whom, I'm not going to tell you.
What's your price for him?
It's 100 million. No, but it's yeah. No, it's hard to say because there's context to everything. You know, it really depends on the player. It depends on the clubs that are coming after. It depends on his ambitions as well. I know Kucho loves it here, and he's been fantastic for us. And it's almost like almost destiny, because when we went after him, we told him exactly what's happening now. Obviously, we didn't know for sure, but we did tell him, hey, come here, show what you're actually capable of, win some trophies, become a legend, we said. And he's accomplishing this, and to see him blossom in front of us is great. But again, we have to remember he's only 25, as opposed to other marquee signings in our league. He's still young in a way. So obviously he has ambitions, but we shall see what the future holds.
How much has he matured just this year? Wilfried even talked about it the other night. He was asked, is there anything more you can say about Kucho at this point? He said, thanks for
Yeah, and I agree with Wilfried because we're fortunate to be around those guys every day, and we see how they evolve in their interaction with players and with staff and with people, with everyone in this building. And as for Cucho and other players, but as for Cucho, proud to see how he has evolved as a person. As a player, I'm not surprised because everybody can see the skills that he has, and he's evolved and gotten better as a player. But as a person, you can see off the field on how he behave, how he is around his teammates and around the people around this facility, and he's grown. He's grown, and it's proud to see that.
Are you, your team's really held up physically, as you just mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
Some might describe that as surprising, given the load of work they've had to shoulder since probably the end of the Champions Cup onward. How do you feel about your team as you look forward now to not just Campeones Cup, but the stretch run and the playoffs?
Mm-hmm.
Because LA last year, for the comparison, they played 52, 53 games, something like that, and by the end of it, they said they felt it. Seattle in the past has won Champions League and then just fallen off the map in their MLS season. I mean, just generally speaking, it is remarkable the pace of games that your team has been able to shoulder.
No, that's a great question, Mike, because it's something that team doesn't cease to amaze me. What they're doing is incredible. Because what people have to understand is that when we play every 4 or 5 days, it's draining. It's draining, yes, physically, but also emotionally, mentally, and you have to reset always. Just I give you the example that we just were in Toronto. You leave your family the day before, you travel, you have the full day before the game, then you have to prepare mentally and physically. You play a game, you win, you travel back late at night.
Australian Cup,
Yes, a lot of pressure, exactly. You have to come back home with the cup. And then you only have Thursday, Friday, and off. You play another tough game on the Saturday, and again you have to reset and go. So that's where this team is amazing me in that sense of being able to always be ready and to perform, because no one was surprised what happened to LAFC last year and Seattle before, just because it's tough to start off with a Champions Cup run, and then you have to postpone games, and then you have a Leagues Cup in the summer, and so on and so forth. So that's why earlier I said let's enjoy this time, because it's pretty incredible what they're doing. And now moving forward, again, I'm never going to bet against this team, against our players, because what they've shown in these past 42 games, we have hopefully another 11 games or so to go, and I wouldn't be surprised if they go all the way.
Did you in any way have to assure Club America that there'd be no E. coli in their food?
Yeah, I won't answer that. They came last year, and we treated them well off the pitch, and then.
Does anyone know what happened in Pachuca at this point, Issa?
No, and there's one thing I want to say is that fair enough, people kind of make fun of it in a way,
It's not funny.
but it wasn't funny just because some of us here were there, and you could see our players that the day of the game, and how they were at breakfast, at lunch, at pre-match meal, and it was just, you could tell like this is not us. And then at the end of the game, when we had a staff member that could barely stand on his feet, that was not funny. So yes, I get it. People make fun of that moment, but in retrospect, it wasn't a fun time at all. And again, kudos to our guys, and They were, how do you say, proud, and they kept their heads up in that moment. And I wish we could play it again. But yeah, that happened.
But the commissioner, when he was in town for the All-Star game, said the league hadn't done any investigation. I'm not aware of anything from CONCACAF. Did CONCACAF look into it, or did they just shrug and say,
I'm not sure. I do not think so. I'm not sure, and maybe it's complicated for them to look into it. I don't have the details on that. We try to be as prepared as we could, and that happened. Where did it come from? I don't know.